formidable robot.
Obviously, at least a few of you have played a game that's controversial or has an element within it that deems more controversy than you thought there'd be. For this example in particular, let's drop the basic picks involving the formulaic gun shooting or killing people, and talk about what makes a game's premise truly problematic to some. Rockstar published a game literally holding the word bully in their title, and they're well endowed with violence, so you can see how that would be misinterpreted by the masses, no? What about Wolfenstein and its spin on the Second World War, or Night Trap's mildly sexual slasher flicky undertones? That's the type of contentiousness I'm referring to. Now let me ask you this, have you ever played a game that legitimately made you feel bad playing it? I'm not talking about titles that simply mishandle their subject matter due to poor writing choices. I mean, has there ever been a game you've played that is meticulously designed to make you feel awful? And that leads to my third and final question. Are you aware by some slim chance of Mixalot, the 2006 CD-ROM typing game? It's likely that you haven't, as there are just 3 copies in existence, but if you saw a man in Utica, New York at the time, handing out little plastic disc cases in a street corner, you now know its creator. Morgan Gates, a man who slowly crawled up the ranks to achieve his success, reputable owner of a small southern kitchen, aspiring game developer, and the only dev for Mixalot, had one purpose when giving these away: to bring awareness to a supposedly ongoing issue in his city. He sold the game exclusively to adults, never kids. Whenever children approached him, intrigued by that sweet dopey chubby chef on the front cover, he'd instantly refuse no matter how many times they asked. How long it took for him to make Mixalot isn't certain. Shortly after all the copies were sold, he disappeared without a trace, leaving both his job and life behind. Everything in his apartment was gone, with the exception of his furniture and what the hotel provided. All that he left behind was a note in an envelope addressed to him, laying on the table. A folded up sheet of printer paper, with magazine cutout pieces glued inside to mask whoever put it together. I'll know if you decide to keep running your mouth. Mark my words, slime. In that same envelope, according to the unknown private investigator who had found it, sat a photograph of a bracelet soaked in blood, with a lidded tin bowl on the side. A tiny repainted microphone was also discovered to have been wedged within a small chip in the wall, right next to the foot of his door. Clearly someone was out to get him, but why couldn't he have spoken with the feds? What would he have had to deal with if he didn't leave? But more importantly, whose bracelet was that? The last disc in Morgan's stack has been collecting dust in my attic for almost 2 decades. After my playthrough, I may have unfortunately been exposed to the answer. The player is immediately put in a kitchen setting with the titular Mixalot character from the game's cover and a square dance melody set as the background music. Aside from the start button, there was a small sticky note in the corner that you could click on, giving you instructions on how to play. Mixalot has a date night with his wife planned, and he wants to make something special for dinner that appeals to both of them. Simple step-by-step directions: type down the ingredient on your list, move on to the next, and if you successfully get them all correct, you move on to the next level. There are 5 levels to get through, each one expanding upon the amount of ingredients needed. The first level was basic enough. You were tasked with making black bean and corn salad, and there were around 15 words to get through in a time limit of less than 2 minutes. The ingredients you needed would repeat every 6 words until you reached the end of your mixing process. Something odd, completely out of place actually that I noticed, was one of the accessories in the background nailed to the wall. Alongside the kitchen appliances, stove, blender and everything else, I saw some kind of wall clock themed after the Justice Department with an eagle overlaying it. Its hands changed to a different time with every level that was finished. I wondered why or how this guy would have an item like this just sitting in his house. The bizarre idea of it made me chuckle a little. The next 2 levels were a little bit harder, but it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. The word count increased, from 15 in the first stage to 35 in the third. One difference that the third level had as opposed to the last 2, was that the background music was gone. The sound had instead been replaced with a ticking clock, probably from the one behind Mixalot. His face went from happy and rosy-cheeked to poker-faced. Just a straight line for a mouth as he sat in awkward silence. The fourth level came, and Mixalot just flat out looked tired of what he was currently doing. Words appeared at a much slower pace, rendering this part of the game a difficulty spike. It took me about 3 playthroughs to finish, but I managed to make it past after a bit of effort. In came the 5th and final level. The dish was incredibly simple, just a bowl of southern colored greens. Somehow with the 50 words there were only 2 ingredients flashed on screen for me to type, the colored greens themselves, and chicken. Mixalot had the face of someone who felt heartbroken, baggy-eyed and all, one that screamed, "My love stood me up on a promise." By this point, I was lost in thought. Surely this had to have been the reason for why kids didn't receive any copies, because it had a really sad premise that likely wouldn't have sat right with them. Still, even with that in mind, why was it so lengthy, so boring? What was the point of its sudden change? Finally, after so much time wasted typing, the timer and word count faded out, and I reached the final word in the ingredients list. One that didn't make any sense to me until I typed it down. Liquor. As soon as the last letter was pressed on my keyboard, no victory screen was given to me. Instead, I heard the snapping of metal, and a large object being forcefully launched forward, causing Mixalot to jump and look to his right. He was engulfed in a rectangular yellow light, partially covered with the shadow of a muscly yet slim figure, indicating that somebody kicked his door down. A home security alarm went off. Everything suddenly cuts to black once a full bottle of liquid labeled XXX had been chucked into view, striking Mixalot in the forehead and smashing on impact. While the darkness stayed for just a few seconds, it felt like watching someone's after death. Or so I thought, until he woke up somewhere, a place that was clearly not his kitchen. A place with paintings adorning the walls and a dusty circular table. His arms were tied behind the chair he sat in, and dried blood covered the top half of his face, some of it trickled down to his chin, his goatee stiff from the fluid that soaked it. Silence overtook everything for almost half a minute, even when I pressed every key in an attempt to skip, carefully avoiding the escape button from how far I've gone. I was considering closing the game, thinking that it may have either soft locked somehow or this was just the end. That's when someone walked in. A shirtless muscular man, with slight hyperpigmentation dots on his shoulders and a cornrow for hair, loomed over the captured chef. His facial features were not shown, instead drenched in shadow with 2 bright white circles for eyes. He spoke, the first line of text on the screen denoting it. "Did you want your life to be this hard? You snitched, you saw me watching, was that not enough of a warning to you?" His hand raised into view, gripping onto the wall clock. "Did you think I wouldn't know where those people you spoke to came from? Or what use they'd be?" His fingers twitched, gripping harder onto the clock and accidentally cracking the glass, before chucking it to the ground out of frame. He took a deep breath, before stepping to another side of the room. "I have something for you." Coming back, he slid a metal bowl in front of Mixalot, the contents of whatever was inside making his face discolor into a pale green. "Well, eat up. Wouldn't want it to get cold, right?" The ripped man sat next to his captive, one arm over his shoulder while the other picked up a wooden spoon, mixing the bowl for him. A word came up for me to type. Well, not exactly a word in typing form. It was a photo of a heart with type on the right side. Everything that had been happening prompted me to pause and put my hand over my mouth. No wonder he gave this specifically to adults. I can't imagine the reactions those kids would have over what the hell I was looking at. I wanted to just get up and go get a glass of water to at least give me a better headspace for this, but every 5 seconds I didn't do something, Mixalot's face would be shoved near the bowl like some dog. I said, "Eat, you fat fuck." And so, I ate, but I only made it past 4 words, his face growing more and more green with everything he slurped up. The first picture being of a heart, the rest being lungs, a liver, and finally, a tongue. By the time I reached the 4th word, he choked and spat something up on the table. Something small that reflected light, even in its blood-doused state. One curl, fit for love. Mixalot's sweating vomit-ridden face slowly zoomed in. Before the game closed by itself, his head was pushed down by its scalp out of my view, and behind him stood a silhouette basked in an opposite flat white. one that resembled a woman, adorning a bracelet.